Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved his war cabinet, once a coalition of rivals meant to sow unity during the conflict in Gaza. That changed last week when Benny Gantz, the leading moderate opponent of the Prime Minister, resigned over the absence of a plan to govern Gaza after the war. Many have feared Netanyahu would now lurch towards the hard right, the linchpin of his remaining support.
Does the disbanding of the war cabinet mean that Netanyahu might cave to even more right-wing pressure? We'll discuss that, but first, we have to talk about a major accusation made over the weekend by Bibi's rival, Benny Gantz. As we know, the Israeli and American governments keep telling us Hamas has been the only thing standing in the way of a ceasefire. But according to Benny Gantz, one of only 5 members of the now dissolved war cabinet, that's not true. In interviews with Israeli media outlets, he called out Netanyahu for undercutting attempts at a ceasefire for political purposes. Take a look.
מתווה החטופים, יושבים בקבינט ניהול המלחמה, מסכמים מתווה, נתניהו יחד עם קבינט ניהול המלחמה מאשר אותו, מעביר אותו לידי צוות המשא ומתן, לאחר מכן מקבל מסכת לחצים מסמוטריץ' אולי מאנשים אחרים, מסובסב את הסיבוב, נותן להם טלפונים, מעכב אותם מחדש. אז היום שאחרי בעזה מעט מדי ומאוחר.
Now, Gantz claimed Netanyahu is trapped by the political pressure he is under, and therefore he doesn't dare to do what he knows needs to be done. Of course, the Likud party accused Gantz of fabricating the story, saying in a statement, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave the negotiating team a full mandate to reach a deal 5 times. But Hamas is the one who refused and demanded an end to the war before all its goals were completed. Today, everyone knows that Hamas was and is the only obstacle to the release of our hostages. But Gantz isn't the only person with insider knowledge making these claims. Here's Alon Pincus, a former advisor to members of the Israeli government.
You know, it's unfortunate for me as an Israeli to admit to this, but this has been duplicitous and deceitful and mendacious. He basically rejected Israel's own offer, which sounds like George Orwell's 1984, but it's actually Mr. Netanyahu's 2024.
So we have more, but Cenk, I want to bring you in here on these claims that Netanyahu has been disrupting these negotiations.
Yeah, there's a couple of different issues here, including one we're going to get to in a second about the disagreement between Netanyahu and the Israeli military about humanitarian pauses. That's, I think, super interesting. And are we going to get a peace deal or not?
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT into the media giant it is today. Together, we can accomplish anything. Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
So in this issue about the ceasefire, number one, look, there's a certain group of people that believe in anything that comes out of Israel mythology, right? Israel is the most moral army on earth, no matter how many civilians they kill, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the pieces of mythology is Israel is eminently reasonable, and they've always offered the best deals to the Palestinians. I mean, you can keep 13% of your land, or maybe 7.5%. We're so reasonable. We're so reasonable. I'm doing hyperbole, okay? But some of the deals were awful that Israel proposed. Now in America, that's like unacceptable. You can't say that. You have to pretend that every offer that Israel has ever made for the last 50 years, it was the greatest gift from God. And the Palestinians, the monster savages that they are, were like, oh no, right? I want to kill all of you, right? So I know this is the nonsense that American media tells you. So the reality, of course, is no. Both leaders are bad, both the leaders of Hamas and Israel. They, unfortunately at this point, neither side for a long, long time wanted to get to peace. They both gained from this conflict, and it sucks, but it's true. And so if you think, no, that's only the Palestinians, never the beloved Israelis, it's absurd. Netanyahu loves war, has greatly profited off of war in his personal political career, et cetera. So in this case, as you see this, Hamas, and now there's other reporting they're saying over and over again, including yesterday, yes, we say yes, our answer is yes. We want this deal, yes, right? And as the Israeli negotiator there alluded to, it's the Israelis that are going, no, we pull our own deal. I don't want it, okay? because it was always fake. He was bluffing. He doesn't want that war to end. If the war ends, they go to an election. And for a long time, it looked like Netanyahu was going to lose. Now it's not as clear that Netanyahu is going to lose, by the way. So watch out for that. The minute he gets the lead in the polls, you might get the new election. So it's complicated because of the parliamentary system. But I want to say one last thing for now about this. Netanyahu is unfortunately great at politics. Sorry, our job is to tell you the truth, okay? So to give you a sense of it, Netanyahu at one point had a power sharing agreement with Benny Gantz, not in this version of the government, but an earlier version, okay? And Netanyahu negotiated so he would go first as prime minister, and then Benny Gantz would be prime minister. And the minute that it was supposed to go to Benny Gantz, Netanyahu refused to approve the budget deal, thereby, by definition, sinking the government. So, oh, I guess Benny doesn't get his chance. Back to me. So he's really good at this maneuvering. The problem is he's maneuvering with people's lives. And so here he's trying to balance between, hey, if I get rid of Ben Gvir and Smotrich, the government collapses, I gotta go against Benny Gantz in a general election that I might lose. I don't want that. Besides which, he agrees with Ben Gvir and Smotrich. All this talk of like, oh God, they're twisting his arm into being a radical right-winger. No, Netanyahu is as deeply radical a right-wing politician as I've ever seen. So you don't have to convince him to agree with the monsters. He is the monster, right? So is he navigating so that he avoids the election, pretends that he's moderate enough so he doesn't piss off the secular branch of Israelis and all the other things that are going on, doesn't have anybody else leave his government, but meanwhile gives the far right wing everything they want so they don't leave the government? Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. So Gantz is right about all of this. But whether Netanyahu will be exposed and they get a new election, that's a much harder question because he's good at this.
Yeah, I'm really curious. We've seen a couple leaks, pretty big leaks about some of this stuff over the past couple weeks. CNN did a segment about a week and a half ago, talking about how Israel was intentionally undermining their negotiations by stressing that any deal must include just basically the total eradication of Hamas. Now, this isn't to support Hamas, but if you were on the receiving end of a deal, hey, whatever we agree to, you're going to die, that's not going to happen. Like no one's going to willingly, even the worst, most irrational person is not going to be like, oh, okay, I guess I have to die. And that they were stressing that, CNN was reporting that they were doing that intentionally to tank these deals, or tank the negotiations so they could pin the blame on Hamas. And that doesn't seem to be the case, as we're seeing now. Hamas is just kind of asking questions and wanting to negotiate, wanting to reach a resolution here. So that plus the story we saw today out of the Jerusalem Post showing that they had information on October 7th, 2 weeks in advance. I'm sure we'll get to it tomorrow, but it looks like top Israeli intelligence officials knew exactly, even down to the number of hostages Hamas was planning to attack, or Hamas was planning to take 2 weeks prior, and they didn't act on it. Through negligence or totally ignoring it, or what?
Yeah, Jordan, real quick on that. Look, I have a theory that sometimes governments, they don't plan conspiracies and go, okay, I'm gonna send the IDF to do that, I'm gonna send the Navy team SEALs to do, etc. But there are some people within governments that see tons of plots against their own people, stop most of them, but sometimes when it's politically expedient, maybe they don't stop one because they think it's really gonna help their brand of politics. And that's, so you could make, look, we all are seeing the same information. You guys can draw, we don't have any secret information. You can draw your own conclusions. But why would the far right wing, whose main claim to fame in Israel is that they're gonna keep people safe, know that Hamas is going to attack, exactly how they're going to attack, and how many hostages they're gonna take, and then golly gee, decide that's the one time that Hamas is not a threat? Maybe, but we all have eyes and we all have ears.
And it certainly would further, like you're saying, it would further Smotrich and Ben Gvir's plans for settlements through taking Gaza. I mean, these are people who, Ben Gvir just on Flag Day led the march in Jerusalem saying that all of that belonged to Israel. So it would certainly play right into their hands if they had a national rallying cry. But more on this war cabinet. So it was formed after the attacks of October 7th, which led to the military response, of course. And after Gantz resigned last week, far-right finance minister Smotrich and national security minister Ben Gvir both demanded that Netanyahu add them to the war cabinet, which may have been part of the motivation to disband it. Another interpretation is that without Gantz in it, there was no longer any point in keeping the war cabinet going. Instead, an Israeli official tells CNN, Netanyahu will in the future hold smaller forums to discuss sensitive matters relating to the war with Hamas. The larger security cabinet will also play a role in making decisions about the war. Ben Gvir and Smotrich both attend Israel's security cabinet meetings. Finally, all of this as there seems to be rising contention between the Israeli government and the IDF over a plan for a tactical pause. And this is specifically along an aid route where military operations are. And here's more, take a look.
Israeli military announcing over the weekend it is putting in place these daily pauses of 11 hours to allow more humanitarian aid in through a specific area. This is eastern Rafah near the Kerem Shalom crossing. The far right of Benjamin Netanyahu's government is blasting this decision. They say there should be less aid going to civilians in Gaza, not more. They say whoever made the decision to allow the aid in is a fool who should not be allowed to stay in his position. And an Israeli official is saying that Prime Minister Netanyahu himself apparently was unaware of this decision. He says it's unacceptable and that the fighting will continue in other areas of Rafah.
To be clear, the IDF has not said they will escort any of the aid into Gaza. Rather, the tactical pause is supposed to allow aid organizations to come through the Kerem Shalom crossing to pick up the aid and distribute it throughout the Strip. But many of the groups say that even with this alleged pause in fighting along that route, it's still too dangerous. Cenk, what do you make of this new kitchen cabinet that Netanyahu is forming? Do you think that'll make a difference?
Yeah, no, I don't think any of that makes a difference. So the war cabinet they had 3 voting members. Benny Gantz left, Yoav Gallant was the last voting member left. So a cabinet with 2 people is not a cabinet, okay? And so, and then on top, they had 2 observers, but that's not relevant when it came to the voting. Besides which, I don't think any of it was relevant because Netanyahu was definitely in charge. Then he has a security cabinet. It gets confusing because it's not like America where there's only one cabinet, right? And in the security cabinet, it's filled with fascists like Smotrich and Ben Gvir. If it hurts your feelings that there's now Israeli fascists, sorry, go deal with your therapist. But they're definitely fascists. They often talk about from the river to the sea. They often talk about annihilating the Palestinians and literally stealing their land. So these are the people that are in Israel's security cabinet. So those are the people that are now saying the IDF is too soft. They haven't killed enough Palestinians. They haven't starved enough Palestinians. How dare they take an 11-hour break during the day to get humanitarian aid in between the killing of the Palestinians? So I look, again, this is very different than America because I don't think US military officials can make decisions like that without conferring with the leader of the country. But it looks like maybe they did, or Netanyahu, as usual, is lying. He could have told the IDF, yeah, go do the tactical pause, tell Ben Gvir and Smotrich, oh, I didn't agree to the tactical pause. Because that's the kind of stuff he does all the time. Never, ever believe Netanyahu on anything. I've never seen him not lie. Okay, so it doesn't matter what Netanyahu thinks. What matters is, are they going to continue to do the tactical pause so at least they can get some aid in? I mean, look, guys, even we lose focus of it from time to time. They're killing Palestinians every single day. They killed 7 more today. The IDF is not the most moral army on earth. They have done, in my opinion, and by empirical facts, 30 times the terrorism that Hamas has. They've killed 30 times as many civilians, shown deep disregard for human life. They have kill zones. They have a program called Where's Daddy, where they kill family members on purpose, children and women on purpose. But even the IDF is like, bounds of reason. Maybe we don't let them all starve because we're gonna look bad. And the fascists in the Israeli cabinet are like, no, right? So that's where we are now. Bottom line on all of this is, until you remove Netanyahu, the Israeli people do, right, through an election, none of this is going to change. He gave a fake peace deal. The minute his bluff was called, he says, yeah, I'm just kidding, I don't want the peace. Of course, now he's bombing the hell out of Lebanon, killing Hezbollah leaders nonstop, and then when Hezbollah fires rockets back, they're like, oh, I can't believe they fired back. Oh, it's no good, Lebanon. Now we got to go to war in Lebanon. Oh, look at that, the war will never end. they wipe all of Gaza off the map. Now they wiped Rafah clean. They're like, killing 7 people at a time now, right? And so they're like, oh, we need new targets. Let's go to Lebanon. So Netanyahu is going to drag this war out, and Israel is going to pay a super heavy price, as they have in international criticism, and their reputation is just disastrous. One of the worst in the world now, thanks to Netanyahu. And of course, the Palestinians keep getting slaughtered, and the war risks getting broader and broader every day that Netanyahu stays in power. So he's the bottom line. He is Ben Gvir and Smotrich. He is the fascist that loves these wars and continues these wars and did not protect Israel. So whether it was on purpose or not, there is absolutely no question that Benjamin Netanyahu was a grotesque failure in protecting Israel. So until Israel gets rid of him, we're gonna have permanent war.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.